I'm going to show you a tremendous struggle between the strongest woman in the world, Yifan from China, and her opponent Fabiano Caruana, the recent winner of the Candidates tournament. This game lasted over 7 hours, 98 moves long. Don't worry, I won't show you all those moves, and features some absolutely beautiful endgame play. We joined the game after 45 moves, and Yifan with black is definitely doing very well. She has a nice space advantage. You can see these pawns claim a lot of important squares. Well, they press white's pawns on the queen side, and that means that this pawn is rather weak, but also this pawn as well. And often, if your opponent has two weaknesses, that could be enough to force a win. She defeated Caruana in last year's Grenke Chess Classic. Could she do it again? Well, here, Fabiano, I think, missed a decent opportunity to steer the game towards a draw. I think he could have checked, forcing a trade of knights. Now, black defends that pawn and wants to push the king back. But here, if white trades pawns and just gives up the pawn on the queen side, I think that by bringing the king back, this should be good enough to draw. Maybe I've got that wrong, but seems to me that that should be a draw. But instead, Caruana found another way to simplify the position. He played king f2, and his idea was that after knight g2, he was going to play h4 and liquidate the pawns in that way, and that's exactly what happened. But Yifan had prepared a really nice trap here. So first of all, knight e4 check. King came forward, and now bishop h3, a really unusual move, but this is really clever, and I'm sure that Fabiano had overlooked this idea. If the pawn advances, then we can see what black's threat is. You give a check, the king moves away from the knight, and black is a piece up. That's no good. So white has to trade pawns. So black trades, takes here. Well, at first glance you think, well, what exactly has black achieved here? 4 against 4 on one side of the board must be a draw. But these pawns, cramped by black's pawns here, are actually quite vulnerable. Black is able to shift the knight to the queen side, to that crucial a4 square, attacking the b pawn, and in that way can win a pawn. It's possible to play b3, but in this situation, with an extra pawn, and these pawns look pretty vulnerable. It's not just the fact that this is a strong passed pawn, but the queenside pawns also look very vulnerable. Should be a win for black. Caruana just gave the pawn on b2. Now the knight needs a route back, so that's why a6 was played. And then b5, so the knight can return here without being taken by the bishop. The king is able to defend the pawn, so black needs to, well, kind of reset and think, how do I make progress? Knight c5. Now the threat is to give a check and win the pawn on c3, so the king just ducks backwards and can protect from either b2 or d2, depending on how the knight attacks the c3 pawn. But Yifan came up with a very strong idea. She's going to use her king and knight to make progress here. She basically wants to bring the king here, and in that way to take this pawn on c3. But it's a little bit more complex than that. Have a look what happens. So the king advancing, and now white has a big choice. Do you keep the black king blocked out with king c1, or do you use the bishop to attack the pawns? Well, in the game, Caruana played bishop b7 to attack the pawns. But let's see what happens if king c1, because there are some beautiful lines here. a5. This is an important move to save that a pawn, because that pawn is vulnerable. But in saving this pawn, well, you have to know which pawns to give up, basically. Let's first of all, let's see what happens if white plays bishop takes b5. Then black actually wins very easily by checking and playing king d2. So in this case, we take on c3, and here black just wins very simply just by creating a passed pawn, and you can force the win of the bishop, and crucially there's a pawn left on the queen side. Let's look at another move. So what happens if white waits? Let's say bishop b7. Okay, so we bring the king all the way down the board, and king e1. So we still want to get in this move. Okay, let's see what happens if white waits. So basically you want to try and take this pawn on d5. That's the best pawn to take. But now there's a wonderful breakthrough. So b4. Now we can see the point of playing a5 early, apart from getting the pawn away from a light square. But there are some nice tactics here. And now a winning move, knight d3. Absolutely stunning. So if that's taken, then this pawn rolls home. And otherwise, king b1, knight b4. So now the king just wants to come here, and well, should be possible to win this one or force one of the pawns home. And if c3, this is crucial, then we play king d2. Obviously, if the knight moves, then bishop takes d5, but king d2 is a killer. Well, if pawn takes knight, then of course the pawn rolls home, and if king b2, then d4, and well, the c pawn is going to queen. Some absolutely stunning ideas, but yeah, crucial move a5, not easy to see at all. But instead of playing king c1, Caruana played bishop b7. And here black is winning with the move king d2. And here's the idea. Bishop takes pawn, knight d3 check, fantastic move. And if that's taken, then d4. And once again, it's that c pawn that rolls through, or bishop takes, check, and queen on c1. Incredible idea. Instead, Yifan played a5. This is actually still winning. And it's rather similar to the variations we've just been looking at, actually. Fabiano played king c1, and now if king e2, this is basically exactly the same as we've just seen. For example, here. And once again, this clever move, knight d3 check. So if that's taken, then d4, and we've seen how that forces a pawn through. And if the king goes back, we can take the pawn on c2. That is a better pawn to take than the pawn on c3, and this wins. Well, you can see that if the king comes up, then this knight is going to spin round and check here and take here, and that's two pawns too much. Let's go back. But instead, Yifan played in this position after king c1, not king e2, but knight e2 check. And the problem is that white can now take on d5, and those breakthroughs with the c pawn just aren't possible now. And as far as I can see, this position is now a draw. I haven't been able to find a win. I mean, I'm using a computer to look at this position, but I can't see any way through, and my own head as well, I should emphasize. But yeah, there's no way through. Can play b4, but this just leads to the trade of pawns, and the bishop, of course, can always sacrifice itself if there are too few pawns on the board. Yifan tried for another 28 moves, to be precise. They went round in circles many times, but basically no way through in this position. Caruana just keeps the bishop on this diagonal, and well, as I said, I'm not going to subject you to right to the end of the game, but basically Yifan made no progress from this position. So she was very, very unlucky. She, I think, to a certain point, found all the right moves and completely outplayed Fabiano in the middle game and the end game, and finding some beautiful ideas. But disappointment for her. She just makes a draw. So that means at the top of the tournament, after 6 rounds, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Nikita Vityugov and Fabiano Caruana all have 4 out of 6. Carlsen and Aronian on 3.5. If you're interested in checking out interviews with Fabiano Caruana and Hou Yifan, then do check out the playlist. You could tap on the info button up there and you can see their playlists and interviews and much more besides. Thanks very much for watching. Well, the question is, I still want to know, 3 rounds to go, can Carlsen still win the tournament? He's got stiff competition. Thanks for watching.